And now it's time for another edition of the 12th Man Fan Jam. With your host, the Reverend Moses of the St. Paul Island Church of Seahawk Positivity.
Yes, thank you once again, magic voice of the 12th Man Fan Jam. It is indeed the self-appointed Reverend Moses of the St. Paul Island Church of Seahawk Positivity, and welcome one and all to this week's show. We're truly honored that you have decided to join us this week and make us part of your Seahawk tradition as we all try to make it through the bye week together. Please stay in your seats until the captain has said it is safe to move about the cabin. And remember, a weekend without Seahawk football is like a day without sunshine and rainbows and unicorns and steak and 49er losses. As we buy time to get through this little trip known as the 12th Man Fan Jam this evening, I want you all to know that we are not alone. No, we have our 12th Man Fan Jam posse to facilitate us through the evening. And as always, this posse is led by my partner in crime, the yin to my yang. He's never just passing by, live from across the big old pond known as the Atlantic Ocean in merry old England, Matt.
Hello. How are you? Well?
Matt, we are all well. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, not too bad. Thanks, mate.
Glad to hear. And of course, we have our own news hound back in the saddle this evening, Shadowhawk. We know him as Will.
Good evening, Moses. And for the record, in Seattle, we get a lot of days without sunshine.
That's true. That's very true, Will. And then there's the rest of us posse tonight. Guys, we got to sit up straight because there be a lady on the panel tonight. Yes, our first lady panelist, direct from the lovely state of Arizona. She is Blinghawk.
Whoop, 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 whoop. So what am I when you said others? Am I like Gilligan's Island and the others or something?
And the rest.
And the rest?
Have you ever seen Star Trek?
Years ago, my brother and I watched.
Red shirt.
I'm the insert. Okay.
You're a red shirt. If somebody, we all go somewhere.
Oh, no.
It's Matt and Moses and Shadowhawk and the red shirt. You would be the red shirt.
You're gonna die, Bling. You're gonna die.
Yeah, so, it's been nice knowing you, though, I have to say.
Wow. Well, at least I have my lipstick on, so I'm all good. I'm ready.
Yeah, and we don't want anything to happen, but, if it does. Would you do us a favor, since you are our guest panelist? Will you tell us a little bit about yourself and why the Seahawks and your favorite player and just kind of what the Seahawks mean to you a little bit?
I would love to.
Why, thank you.
Well, when I first fell in love with the Seahawks was back in '76 when I was a young little girl. I had to watch the football games because my dad and my brothers watched football. So I got into watching when the Seahawks came around, and I loved, blue and green were my favorite colors. Yes, even purple still, but blue and green were my favorite colors. And my dad always said, he was like, you know more of the players than you do, like, who's president, what's going on in politics. And this is when I was like in 5th grade or so. And I was like, yep, I do. So I knew a lot of the players. And I don't have a favorite player now because I used to know a lot of the players back in the day. So I know what they're like. So I don't drool over players. I drool over the team. So.
Well said. Well said. Yeah. And something I'd like to add before we continue. Two things. First off, Blinghawk is a wonderful driver if you're ever in Seattle and you need a lift.
What am I driving, Miss Daisy? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. She found a parking garage and just kept going round and round and round.
We were going to China, basically, in that parking garage.
I think we passed mole people. I'm not sure.
I think so too. The garage never ended. And I was like, who the heck picked this hotel?
And it was me. Yeah.
Yes. That's why I have the fear. And of course, the whole time, I couldn't tell the whole time I get claustrophobic. So we were going down and it was like a little steep and deep area. And I was just like, okay, breathe. I got guests in the car. I'm in a rental car and I got guests in the car. Breathe. You didn't see me. I was about to have a hyperventilate going, get me out of this little thing. So
no, I figured you knew exactly what you were doing. I was kind of claustrophobic myself. I think my wife was too, but that's another story.
Yeah.
So Let us move on away from Blinghawk's driving record, and let's go ahead and tell you how this show works. I know you're all excited to get the show started. How does this show run? Well, it goes like this. The show's divided into 4 quarters with 2 2-minute warnings, just like a real NFL football game. The first quarter this evening will be spent with our news hound, Shadowhawk. The second quarter will consist of us talking about last week's win over the Vikings and looking back on our predictions and prognostications from last week. Halftime is interesting. If you notice, our Statsman Mark is still missing. And if you listen to our show, first off, thank you for taking the time to listen to us again. But if you do listen to our show and you listened last week, you would notice that Mark was abducted by some rioting 49er fans. Well, the good news is he was released this week, but he is kind of banged up and in the hospital. So I was able to secure an interview. So halftime this week will be me interviewing Statsman Mark from the hospital as he recuperates from being abducted by 49er fans. A fate nobody wants.
On the bright side, his picture on the milk carton was very, very good.
It was, wasn't it? Yes, it was. But see, no 49ers drink milk, so it didn't really work that well. And moving on, the second half kicks off with our Statsman, but of course Mark is not here, so Matt will be overtaking that duty.
Am I getting his salary for this?
Well,
I've done 2 weeks now.
Yeah, we'll discuss a raise later. And okay, of course, at the end, the fourth quarter usually is our prediction for the upcoming game. Obviously, we're on a bye week. We kind of want to stay Saints free this week because we're going to do a big Saints game next week and a big Saints game edition of the 12th Man Fan Jam. So what we're going to talk about is the team stats so far this year, and we're going to play an extended deluxe edition of my favorite game, which is bigger. And at the 2-minute warning, I have a deep thought, just like Jerry Springer. So that's something to look forward to. We want to remind you that, yes, we would love to hear from you and what you think of this goofy little show. Hit us up on the email thingy. Our address is on the screen right now. So please do that. We appreciate any feedback we can get. We hope you sit back, relax, enjoy yourselves for the next hour or so. But enough of me going on and on. Let's get right into the first quarter and news.
Who knows? The shadow knows.
Yes, bringing you the news that fell between the cracks this week while you were preparing to stuff that turkey. Here's our very own Shadowhawk. Shadowhawk, what do you got in the news for us?
Well, thank you for that. First off, we have had an NFL official suspended for the first time since 1984.
What's his last name, Levy?
Sadly, no.
Oh.
For Levy, I was hoping for drawn and quartered, but you can't have everything. But no, Roy Ellison, who umpired last week's Redskins game, was suspended for 1 game without pay for allegedly calling offensive tackle Trent Williams, quote, a garbage-ass, disrespectful mofo. That quote was slightly boldized. This was allegedly in retaliation for Trent Williams hurling a racial slur at Ellison. Wow. Although Williams has denied those charges. But we've seen what Williams is capable of in last year's wild card playoff games, so.
Absolutely. It's a shame that happened to Williams. It's funny, they won't suspend him for a guy tackling another guy in the end zone, but we can get suspended for name calling. It's kind of sad.
Well, that's bullying. That's all that bullying stuff they keep talking about.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're getting shit hot on that, aren't they? Because of the old incognito thing.
Yeah. But hey, and seeing any official suspended is a good start. I mean, let's be honest.
It's true. That's true. Good point. For whatever reason.
I'm just a big fan of this whole they're grading officials now about how good they're in a game, and I want to see the league. I want to have a fantasy football league of officials. I'd play that game. Who do you bench this week? Which official is going to make the worst call this week? You can have a great fan with the fantasy football for the referees. I'd do that straight away.
I'm in the fantasy league. I've been in the same league for 18 years. We get down to the end of the draft, and we're looking at each other like, is Kansas City's kicker been picked? And that's what we begin. We're going like, is that one referee with the weird glasses and the goofy hair, has he been picked yet?
But what was the insult again that he got suspended for? Fat garbage ass MFO.
Yeah, garbage ass disrespectful mofo.
And he got suspended for that. Because
For one
he
game,
needs to
yes.
learn how to. He needs to learn how to be I mean, that's not how you
Well,
swear at
well,
someone.
in fairness, he had been disciplined. He had been warned before for going off on a player, so this is actually his second occurrence.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well,
So
I
he
just
was
think you Americans need to learn how to diss people because that's rubbish.
Well, don't judge us all by one idiot. Come on.
So what would you
I mean,
call them?
what they should have done. You know that 12-year-old kid from last week who'd made the joke about and got punched in the face by the teacher and got knocked out cold.
Right.
He ought to be teaching people how to tell jokes and diss people because he gets
That's
punched in the face for it. So
That's
he's
true.
got to be doing it right, isn't he?
Well, listen. In fairness to the ref, he did get advice from Richard Sherman about Williams. So that's all I got.
Well,
to
he's
say.
lucky
Good.
Williams didn't slap him anyway.
No, he didn't.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of refs, though, did you guys see this weekend? Tansy and I met Lance Easley. Do you remember he's the ref that was at the
Right.
I did
Packers game?
see that. That was
Yeah.
very
Placement
impressive.
ref at the Packers game that made the wonderful call for us. Yes.
Yeah, so we sat and talked to him for a while. It was so funny because when Tanti she goes, Brehani, do you know who this is? And I was just like, okay, there's a tall white man standing there, an older white man. I'm like, 100,000 through my face going, not really. She was like, this is Lance Easley. And I was like, oh, okay. Going, okay, I don't know the name. And she was like, the ref from the Monday Night Football game. I was like, oh my gosh, okay.
Right,
So
stick your hands in the air. Oh yeah, I know you.
yeah, I was like, okay. So yeah, he has a book out. So it's kind of really interesting talking to him, kind of getting the rest perspective on stuff. I guess there's a lot. I know this shocks us. There's a lot of trash talking between players and the refs that goes on.
Yeah.
I was like, wow.
As it should.
As it
Yes.
should.
Yes,
Especially the refs.
and the players try to quote unquote kind of not bully, but kind of push the refs and see how far they can go. And so that's why it doesn't kind of surprise me that one of the refs kind of gotten a little spanking because it's very common.
Very sad. Very sad. Will, what else you got for us?
Well, Michael Crabtree has been not been put on the active roster yet, and the window for San Francisco to do that expires on Tuesday. But there's reason to believe that even if he is put on the active roster, he may not play right away. According to Matt Mayoko of CSNBayArea.com, which is actually a real site, I guess, the 49ers have cut back on his practice time as he is recovering from a torn Achilles and are taking things fairly slow with Crabtree. So on behalf of 12th Man Fan Jam, I think we'd all like to wish Crabtree a long, slow recovery.
Oh yes, and the kids appreciate that. Let's have a nice, long, slow recovery there, Michael Crabtree, and he'll get well later, not sooner.
Yeah, get well eventually. Just
Get well
not this year.
eventually. Say March would be great.
And finally, a bit of sad news. Dan Dierdorf announced this week that he is retiring from the broadcast booth. The All-American at Michigan and Pro Football Hall of Famer played 13 years into the NFL, and then went into broadcasting, which he has done for 30 years, 12 of which were on Monday Night Football. Dierdorf said, quote, "It has become a challenge for me to travel to a different NFL city every week, so it's time to step aside."
He's making a lot of trips to Cleveland, apparently.
Well, that'd make me want to step aside. But,
Yeah, I think so too.
you know, it's sad because I grew up watching this guy with Frank Gifford and Al Michaels on Monday Night Football. That's how I first knew who he was. So it's kind of sad to see that he's not going to be in the booth anymore.
He always did that strictly prohibited when he had to read the disclaimer at the end.
Yep.
He had to throw that accent in there. So then whenever I see that, I always had to throw the accent in because of him.
I do a pretty mean Dan Dierdorf. Would you like to hear it?
Let's hear
Well,
it.
of course you would.
It's a challenge to travel every week to a game. That's all I got.
Admiral Akbar from Star Wars.
Thank you very much.
It's a trap.
I'll be here all week. I'll be here all week. That's the
Well,
best Dan Dierdorf I got.
Moses,
Thanks,
that
OG.
wasn't bad, but you need to work on the mustache there, buddy.
And I didn't list enough. It's a challenge to. I have to do more like that. It's a challenge to travel every week from game
I
to
could do the
game.
Geico lizard.
That's a terrible call.
I know people didn't like him, but he was very blunt on the call. Like he would call it
Yes.
out. And he would be
Oh,
like,
he would.
"Hey, that's a ridiculous call." That's, where he didn't kind of sit on his hands. He would tell how it is.
Yeah,
We're like, thank you.
he didn't mince words. He just whatever he saw, he called. And
he was one of the first ones I felt that did that. He was one of the first ones that actually said what he felt. I felt like.
Yeah. So I liked him. I was liked watching him, and then when the Seahawks went to the NFC, so then we didn't see because he was a Seahawk or the other side, so we never really saw a lot of his games he called or heard a lot of his games.
Yeah. Well, that's sad. I'm going to miss him.
Yes.
I'm over it.
It's the end of the first quarter, bitches.
And it looks like we're at the end of the first quarter. So thank you, News Hound Shadowhawk, for enlightening us with the news we may have missed. We're going to take a break and go for station identification, and we'll be right back with the start of the second quarter.
Hi, this is Mosette, Moses' daughter, and please keep listening to the 12-Man Fan Jam.
Or I will find you. And now it's time for the second quarter of the 12th Man Fan Jam. In the second quarter, we will be discussing the good, we will be discussing the bad, and we will be discussing the ugly of last week's game. Here to take you through the second quarter is once again our host, the self-appointed Reverend Moses of the St. Paul Allen Church of Seahawk Positivity.
Thank you once again, Magic Voice of the 12th Man Fan Jam. It is time to review last week's game with a little bit of good, a little bit of bad, and maybe even a little bit of ugly. As ugly as you can find, a 41-20 win for the Seahawks against the Minnesota Vikings. First, we'll start with Will. Will, what good did you see in last week's game?
Well, I'm afraid this is not going to be terribly original, but you just got to look at Percy Harvin. I mean, not just the catch, not just the kickoff return, but whenever he was on the field, the Vikings defense had to account for him. That led to Doug Baldwin getting open in his touchdown pass, helped Baldwin get open on another long pass earlier in the game. It's just we finally got a guy at the position who really commands the attention of other defenses, and I think that's going to open things up for everybody, not just for him, and it's coming at exactly the right time.
I could not agree more. Brehani, how did you feel about Percy Harvin's debut in a Seahawk uniform?
It was about time because I was so tired of hearing all the hype about it. So it was like, he shined, and it was like, okay, he did not disappoint. That was so nice because I was very nervous with all the hype. That I was like, okay, he better do good because something good got to happen because there's so much hype brought up to it. So it was like, yes, he had a great game. He shined.
He definitely shined. He definitely shined. Matt, your view on Percy?
Yeah, I mean, he definitely did shine. He was electric when he had the ball. I mean, the thing for me, I was just worried all the time. Don't get hurt. Don't get hurt. Don't get hurt.
Yeah.
Especially on that return, and I know it was an amazing return, just exactly what we needed before the half. But it was like, don't get hurt. If you have to, slide. as if he was some sort of quarterback. If you have to, slide, but just don't get hurt. But no, he was great.
Oh, he was
fantastic.
fantastic.
The Vikings were going to go after him too, going, all right, you are our guy. And, so it was like they were gentle to him. They didn't try to hurt him.
And I noticed a couple other plays, and I noticed a couple other plays where Wilson went a different direction. That in the background, that Harvin was open a lot when he was out there, and that made me feel good because he's not used to looking for number 11. But maybe these next 2 weeks, if Wilson can, I'm not gonna say key on him, but if he can kind of look for him, he was beating their secondary pretty bad when he was out there. So I felt good about that too. I just thought it was wonderful. As advertised, and I was very excited when we got him. I wasn't real familiar with him. I have a friend who's a Viking fan, so I kind of knew who he was. I know that Peterson was really upset that they let him go, and I saw some highlights, and I thought, wow, this guy is a highlight reel, but he really came in like gangbusters. I agree. Great, good. Percy Harvin, really a great, good thing that came out of that game. Matt, is there anything bad that came out of 41-20 win?
Just a couple of things, really. I mean, the third quarter with no points. I don't like quarters without points. Wasted opportunities. The penalties killed us a little bit in that quarter as well. And if when you're playing people like the Vikings, yeah, you can get away with that. But I just think sometimes we've just got to bang in points every quarter. There's no excuse for that, really. I'm not going to talk about the pass interference penalties because I don't know whether they're going to be ugly or not. But are they?
No, you can go ahead.
Okay. Pass interference, I mean, two of them, one for 30 yards or something at the beginning and another one after that. I suppose what's bad about it is I just can't understand sometimes the NFL. If you want to make a game exciting, you're going to have to be able to do something to these receivers so that they have a chance of not catching the ball. It just seems to me, I don't like this whole pass interference thing. It annoys me. And the last thing I want to talk about really is just momentum, which is a bad thing for me because of the bye more than anything. We're like a train on a track. We're building up momentum. We've got that speed behind us. We've got Harvin back. We've got our O-line back, and now we've got a week off. And I don't like weeks off.
Yeah.
I don't like the bye week. I certainly didn't like it last year when we came back against the Dolphins.
Nope.
And if you remember, I was the one that turned around and said, "We'll lose that game because
You did.
we just we weren't prepared." And I hate the fact that we're about to lose momentum coming off a great, set of wins this week off and then a Monday Night Football against Saints. That worries me. And I don't
Also,
like it.
because for all these years, it's been after a bye week, Seahawks have lost a game. It's kind of like, no matter who the coach was, it's like we've lost a game after the bye week. That makes a little nervous there, especially when this is going to be a Monday night game where it's like, okay, so the world's going to watch. And they saw last Monday night game against the Rams, so they were like, y'all think you're a Super Bowl team? What's up with that?
Yeah, and this is home. This is a sort of home field advantage sort of decider as well, almost. It's in that realm. So for me, it's a case of please don't lose this game because it's a bloody bye week, and please don't let the sprinklers come on halfway through the bloody game or something.
I don't think we even have sprinklers at CenturyLink. We don't really
That's
need
good.
them.
It's good.
Sure if I don't think they do. Yeah.
Then we're a lock then. I agree with everything you said about the bad. I mean everything. I don't have anything to add. Will, do you have anything to add? Did he miss anything?
Well, just with the pass interference penalties, I want to know how we can get called for pass interference when the ball lands 20 yards behind the wide receiver, but it's uncatchable on Monday Night Football when Luke Kuechly tackles Gronkowski in the end zone.
Exactly.
And that's the frustrating thing. I mean, I know it's a judgment call. There's going to be some variance to it, but there's just, come on, it's got to be more consistent than that if you're going to make the call.
Exactly. I agree. That's what they get paid to do. And, I should have asked you, Matt, before the show, because in the intro when I said, a week without Seahawks football, I could have said a week without Seahawks football is like no points scored in a quarter, because that's kind of what you said.
Yeah. Absolutely. Wasted opportunity.
More
football news.
Absolutely. My ugly, I get the ugly for this week. The ugliest thing I saw in that game, I knew I was going to see it over and over all week, and I have. I knew it was going to haunt my nightmares, and it did. I knew the minute I saw it, it was going to be one of those GIFs of the week. I'm talking about Mebane's little shake at the end of that sack with his big old gut hanging out.
Oh, the jelly roll.
I'm watching the game. My wife is sitting there. He does that, and my wife goes, "Oh, goodness, please don't do that." And I said, I just know I'm going to have to watch this GIF all week long. And, of course, it was everywhere.
The jelly roll.
Yes, it was ugly. It would have been better if it was covered jelly roll.
It was a chocolate jelly roll.
Oh, it was not something I want to see over and over and over. And yet, sure enough, 2 days later, I turn on some internet site and look, there it is, over and over and over. Bring me back that little kid that danced last week. Bring him back. I want the little kid dancing from the Atlanta game. I watched that one time for 30 minutes solid, just watching that little kid dance. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. Anyway.
Yeah.
On the bright side, though, Moses, I now have my next year's Halloween costume picked out. All I got to do is get a Mebane jersey 3 sizes too small, and I am good.
Will, have you practicing your moves, or is that what you're doing? You're kind of practicing there too?
Oh yeah, I'll be ready. Trust me.
Okay. But will the world be ready? Will, that's the question.
Probably not. But oh well.
Holy shit! It's a 2-minute warning.
Woo. Oh, thank God! Thank God we're at 2-minute warning. Oh. 2-minute warning. Thank goodness. Now it's time to look back before we get to halftime at last week's Posse's predictions and prognostications. And it's time for me to admit something. We record this show live. We don't splice it in any way, shape, or form. We record it live and we put it on the YouTube channel. And the reason I'm saying this is because we make errors. And I made the same error not once but twice last week talking about the score. I referred last week's score as Seahawks 36, Falcons 10 through the entire broadcast, and realized after I listened to it that I made a big error. It was 33-10. So this week I wrote it down. It's 41-20. The Seahawks beat the Vikings 41-20. Your predictions from last week are up on your screen. Dustin, a funny story about Dustin here in a minute. Dustin 45-13. Matt 34-21, and me 30-13. Obviously, Dustin won. When the score was 38-13, which I believe was when Thurman scored on the interception, it was 38-13. My phone, a message goes off on my phone, and I pick it up, and it's Dustin. And Dustin says, one more touchdown. And I didn't know what he's talking about. I thought he was just being greedy. I thought, wow, you're a greedy son of a gun. And now I look down the scores. I go, oh, he wants one more touchdown because he wants 45-13, which is what he said. So he was very excited, but he barely missed it. He was kind of upset that he missed it. But I think really Dustin was probably the closest. And our scores were a pretty good indication of what we thought it was going to be. All of us said at least 2 touchdown wins, and that's what happened. So good job on predictions last week. This week's posse is going to have to sit a week, so we won't get to make predictions. But next week's posse has got their hands filled with covering the prediction that Dustin had. And then, of course, we have our prognostications. And our prognostications last week are on your screen right now as you see them. And as you see, Dustin said Wilson was going to throw 4 or more touchdown passes. He only threw 2. Matt and I were very generous with our predictions about Marshawn Lynch. Matt had 180 yards. Yeah, Matt said 180 yards and 2 TDs. He got the 2 TDs, Matt.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, but he only got 54 yards. And I said 135 yards rushing, and he only had 54 yards. But I'd say of all those, probably Matt, because you did get the touchdowns right.
Yeah.
So that was pretty good. And then, of course, my favorite part of the show when we did our Which is Bigger last week, it was Which is Bigger. It's going to be bigger, Adrian Peterson's rushing yards or Marshawn Lynch. We across the board, of course, said Marshawn Lynch is going to have more rushing yards than Adrian Peterson. And we were wrong because Adrian had 65. Marshawn had 54. And if I'm not mistaken, the leading rusher on the game was actually Gerhardt, who had 67. So we totally boffed that, but oh well. Hey, we're not professionals. We've made that very clear in what we do. Any final comments, Will, from the show or from the game last week?
Hoping for more like it.
Yes, amen to that. Brehani, you got anything?
No, not at all. I know. Originally, I have nothing to say.
All right, Matthew, any final words?
No, not really. I mean, I just hope that we carry the momentum forward into the Saints game.
I do too. It was a very good victory. It was again another week of playing an inferior opponent, but it was a week of seeing the offense and defense play really well. So hopefully that continues. Please.
I do have something really quickly. I'm glad at least our game is going to be a home game. That will help because if we had to travel, I think that's when it really hurt.
Yes,
but it's going to help having it a home game. So,
I agree with
totally.
I absolutely agree with that.
Holy shit, it's halftime.
And that's the end of the second quarter. We will take a quick halftime break here. Please enjoy the interview I had with Statsman Mark as he recounts his ordeal last week being held captive by a bunch of hostile 49er fans. And we'll take a quick break and we'll come back and see you at the start of the second half.
You're listening to the 12th Man Fan Jam. Next, the 12th Man Fan Jam presents another interview with Moses.
Mark. Mark, are you there?
Yes, Moses, I'm here.
Mark, how you feeling?
Well, I'm a bit worse for wear, but overall I think after a week of bed rest, I should be able to get right back to getting into my stats.
Well, I won't keep you from some needed rest, but can you please recap for us what happened to you after you were carried away in the 49er mob back last Monday following the 49er loss at home to the Panthers?
Yes, Moses, as you know, I was witnessing the mass chaos and hysteria that was occurring just outside the 49er headquarters, which, as you know, is right next to where I actually live. Suddenly, I was approached by several 49er fans who picked me up and carried me off to a Volkswagen van parked across the street from team headquarters. I was then blindfolded and knocked unconscious. When I awoke, I was tied to the front of a trolley car and forced to watch replays of 49er Super Bowl wins from a long time ago. The images of Jerry Rice are scars inside of me that may never heal.
What a terrible ordeal you went through.
Yes, it was. I was forced on a strict diet of rice-a-roni and water. And furthermore, my captors would force me to Kaepernick against my will and would smack me with a cardboard cutout of Joe Montana if I disobeyed.
Well, how did you make it through that torture?
Well, Moses, I'll tell you, I spent a lot of time actually thinking what Russell Wilson would say about always striving to work harder, and Coach Carroll, for that matter, and his always compete mentality. They really got me through the rough evenings.
Were you alone?
Actually, no, I wasn't. They had, it turns out, all kinds of fans from other teams, except for the Jaguar fan base, because I don't think any of them really exist.
Oh, I think you're right. I don't think they exist at all. Well, how and where did they release you following Sunday afternoon's 49er loss to the Saints?
Yes, following the 49er loss to the Saints, I guess my captors felt there was not a reason for keeping me under their diabolical command. My captors then blindfolded me again and dumped me out of the back of their van again, somewhere near the hospital. I called the police from the hospital, but they were too busy trying to cancel their airfare and hotel rooms in New York City to help me. Besides, they said I asked for it for the way I was dressed.
That's really, really sad. Well, it's an incredible story, and I'm glad you're okay.
Yes, Moses, I am okay. The doctor said I would be able to lift weights again here real soon without the need to kiss my bicep. That's a relief. And although my scars from seeing those 49er Super Bowl wins may never heal, the doc did tell me that since those 49er Super Bowl victories were so very long ago, that I will probably not have to worry about seeing any of them again real soon. So I live in hope that will be the case.
Oh, you and me both, Mark. You and me both. This has been an exclusive 12th Man Fan Jam halftime interview with...
Moses?
Oh, yes, Mark?
I just wanted to mention, I have, in fact, sold the right to a movie about this event, actually hoping they can get Johnny Depp to play me in the film.
Yeah. Well, this has been...
At least, don't get someone stupid like David Spade or something. I mean, come on.
This has been 12th Man Fan Jam exclusive halftime interview with Statsman Mark. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Hey, you're listening to the 12th Man Fan Jam, and that was another interview from Moses. Hey, Shango, what did you think of that interview?
He was magical today.
Magical? Really? It's a little bit gay, if you ask me. Anyway, back over to you, Moses. On with the show. He's the stat man. He's the stat man. And here's our very own stat man. Here's Mark.
Thank you, Matt. And as you know, Statsman Mark, from what you heard at halftime, is still pretty beat up. So we have Statsman Matt to take his place this week. Matt, how are you?
I'm really well, really good. Get well soon, Mark. We need you back, man.
Oh, yes. What a harrowing experience that was. Unbelievable.
Don't do heroin.
Apparently, Brehani has just been tickled. So.
She has. I'm sorry about that.
And check. Yeah.
I've got a quite good reach. I don't know why.
God, it's always the Brits.
Man, don't look at me.
They always
The
act
accent,
like
you see.
they're so pompous, and then they tickle people when you don't see them.
You don't even know what happened, and it's like, ooh.
You want some stats for the year to date?
Let's do that, shall we?
Let's do that. Let's do some stats for the year to date. Taken off the NFL.com website, so they're probably not true. But let's start anyway with the offense for the Seattle Seahawks. We are third for 27.8 points. Highest scorer in the league, I think, is still Hauschka, unless, of course, somebody's ever taken him in the last games where no one's been playing. where was I? The offensive yards, 358. That's 12th, and that was without most of that is without obviously Harvin, so he's just come back. That'd be quite nice. Pass yards is 210.5 or 24th, but I think that's just a sign of our dominant running game. And obviously we've had some troubles with the offensive line, which means puts pressure on the pocket, which puts pressure on the quarterback, which then will explain the sack figure that I'm coming up to in a minute. The average rush yard is 147.9. That's third, and that's what you get when you have Marshawn Lynch, Turbin, and Christian Michaels.
Absolutely. The second leadest rusher in the NFL, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't think you're mistaken at all.
Wow.
We've got 33 touchdowns, I believe, at the moment. Field goals, 24 out of 25. Obviously, that one was blocked. And I think we've been sacked 29 times.
Wow.
Which is what happens when your starting O-line is, falls to lots of injuries and they're all out with a magic sponge.
So you're not too concerned. You said 24th in the league in pass.
Mm-hmm.
But you're okay
But then
with
think
that?
about it. I'm not okay with it, but you can understand why, because we have a dominant running game and we have had troubles with our offensive line. So the protection on Wilson has been not brilliant for a lot of games. He's been under pressure. The sack figures, sort of take that into account. And so he's, he does make some fantastic throws, very long throws, but it's those short screens, the short stuff that we don't really tend to do an awful lot of. We just run it. And why not?
And why not? Will, are you concerned with that being the 24th passing team in the NFL, or are we okay on offense?
Well, I tell you, I think that's going to come up a bit with the offensive line. But, in addition to that, and since I mentioned Dierdorf earlier, I'll go back and quote his old college coach, Bo Schembechler. What's more important, throwing for 150 yards and throwing the game-winning touchdown in the Rose Bowl, or throwing for 350 yards against some nothing game against Kansas State?
Mm-hmm.
We may not be getting the yards, but when it comes down to it, Russell Wilson's going to get the drives and get the points.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Points that count.
I think that number is going to come up, but in and of itself, I don't think it's a huge concern.
I think that's what a lot of people don't know around the rest of the NFL is when you look at Russell Wilson's stats from a game, you look at his stats and you go, oh, he only threw for 150 yards, or oh, he only threw this or that. But you don't see when and where those passes are and what he does in a game to win a game. That doesn't show up in the stats, and that's a good indication.
Stats can tell you tons of different stories if you read them in different ways. The only stat that matters is the W in the column.
Right.
And as long as you've got the more W's in the column than everyone else, who gives a shit? It's stats can say whatever. And I always remember, I can't remember which bloody team it was though, but there was the game where somebody threw against us for stupid hundreds and hundreds of yards and lost.
Yes. More often, 300-yard passers lose rather than win, and more often than not, 100-yard rushers are on winning teams.
Yeah.
Very true. Brehani, are you concerned about the passing game as 24th in the league, or are you like everybody else? Hey, we're winning games. We're 10-1. We're running the ball a lot. We don't have to come from behind and throw. So what do you think?
You know what? The stats are stats, and, it's kind of like the Huskies. The Huskies have outstatted all these other teams, but they've lost quite a few games. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like I look at it now going, okay, I got frustrated looking at this, and I'm like, oh, we're winning the game, and that's all that matters is who had more points on the board.
All right. Fair enough.
Oh, we lost someone.
I think Will's dropped it.
Will has gone. Will, come back.
He's back. He's back.
Will, he's back. Will, we missed you.
Back
drop
again.
Paul can run a conversation.
We were just talking about you, so don't worry about it. What about defensively?
Well, before we move on to defense, we're 55 on third down conversions, 55 out of 139. I'd like that higher. Marshawn Lynch, is just shy of 1,000 yards so far. He's at 925, 9 touchdowns. Golden Tate, 42 attempts for 600 yards. His longest is 80 with 4 touchdowns. He's our leading receiver at the moment. Obviously with Rice out and Harvin only just starting, although Golden is just Golden. He's amazing. Mm-hmm. Yes. Let's go on to defense then. So the defense, points allowed, 16.3. That's third in the league. Yards allowed, 293.3. That's second in the league. Pass rush allowed, 180.4. Second in the league. Rush yards allowed. Now, this is where I think those two games, that's these St. Louis game and the other game, sort of where they ran right through the middle of us for the whole game. has destroyed our average. But we're 112.9, which is 16th in the league, and I think that's just 2 games, which has pretty much destroyed a second or third position in the league on that. So a very strong defense, and that's there's no story there. We all knew that.
We did. Will, anything scare you on those set of stats from the defense?
Well, the rushing yards per game did scare me until we righted the ship a couple weeks ago. As long as we can stop the run, our defense is going to be in great shape.
Absolutely. Brehani, anything scare you on defense statistically?
No, they turned it around and they held them down. So I'm all happy. We got the win.
Really pleased Red Bryant was back on the line as well against Minnesota. I think he was absolutely key in stopping Peterson. And I mean, we talked about the stats earlier on where we said, I said 180 yards and you said, I don't know, whatever you said about the number of yards. But I think what we saw in that game was that, both teams had designed to stop the run because that's what they wanted to do. That was the key weapons of the game, and both succeeded. So in that sense, good to have Red Bryant back on the line. Interceptions, 16 interceptions. Richard Sherman, 4 interceptions, and 1 touchdown off that. Earl Thomas, also 4 interceptions, although no touchdowns. And tackles and stuff. Cliff Averill, 15 combined, 10 and 5, 6.5 sack, not bad. 3 fumbles, like that. Michael Bennett, same 6.5 sacks, and no fumbles, though yet. So a very stout defense, but there's no story here. We knew this. There's nothing new. Special teams, kick return. Jermaine Kearse obviously had a concussion, I believe, last week. He was knocked out for. Was that a concussion?
Yeah, he had a concussion.
Wasn't it? Yeah. Haven't heard how he's getting on. I'm assuming he's going through the NFL concussion program the same as everyone else does. So haven't heard anything. But no news is good news on that front.
Right.
13 retards, 283 yards in total. Longest is 40, no touchdowns. And punt return again, as we'd expect. Golden Tate. 31 for 6 fair catches, 12.9 yards. Longest is 71.
Will, are you? I know obviously it looks like Harvin's going to start returning kickoffs. Do you want to see him return punts, or would you rather see Tate keep doing it?
Well, they're 2 different skills. I think Tate has shown himself to be a good punt returner. He knows when to take risks and he knows how to avoid contact. But it is definitely a different skill because when you're doing a kickoff return, those guys have pretty much all 11 guys take off at a dead run. They have the whole field to run at you. And you have to basically pick your spot and just go. Whereas a punt return, you can dance around a lot more and find the hole. So, I'd stick with Tate doing punts and, Harvin, if he's healthy, have him do the kickoff returns, at least some of them.
That's where I'm at. Finding the hole is always very important. But we won't go into that right now. I'm personally sold on Golden Tate as a punt returner. I don't know how many times, especially in that very first game against Carolina, where he caught the ball in the 5 or 10 yard line, and we got out past the 20 every time. And to me, I think he's outstanding as a punt returner. Brehani, are you happy with his returns, or do you want to see Harvin carry everything?
I like it when they play versatile. What I like is whoever gets past the 20 and longer and there's no holding call, I'm happy.
And you're happy.
I think for me, I would just say if it's not broke, there's an element of if it's not broke, don't fix it. And I don't think it's broke at the moment, so I don't see any reason to risk Harvin in those sorts of situations. I'd much rather he was, healthy and playing as a receiver to be able to, mix up the defense so they're not really sure whether we're going to run or throw or what the hell we're going to do. I'd much rather see him do that than I would see him get hurt, needlessly. Not that I want to see Golden Tate get hurt either, but it's not broke, so why fix it?
That's so I feel. What do you feel that way about Kearse? Do you feel like he shouldn't do either? Because Kearse hasn't been bad.
Kearse hasn't been bad, no. But then I still.
No, I said I like the versatile. That it's like a triple threat. So put back there, it'll be fine. That's the thing.
But obviously I don't expect Golden to do everything. But I just think that he seems very comfortable in the situation. Seems very comfortable in the position, and I don't see any necessary reason to put Harvin in.
Will, how does it feel? We'll go back to the defense a little bit. I know when it gets to 3rd and long, we're sending out these guys that are just, It's like a murderer's row. You've got Bennett, you've got Averill, you've got Irvin, you've got Clemens, you've got McDaniel up the middle. This is and they are getting to the quarterback. It's just a massive third down defense. When you have that Legion of Boom back there, you can leave them alone, and then you can bring in just 4 guys and get pressure on the quarterback. I guess my question is, how have they lived up to expectations in your eyes, or do you think they've kind of underachieved? Because it's a pretty lofty group.
Well, I think they've done well, and I think it's helped our defense too. That we don't just have the one guy that we're depending on to rush the passer. Because when Chris Clemens got hurt in the playoffs last year, that was it. I mean, we didn't have anybody who could get to the quarterback.
Right.
So I think it's we don't have the one guy who's really got double-digit sacks leading the league or anything like that. But we got a bunch of guys, any one of whom could make a play at any given moment. So I got to think that makes it hard for opposing offenses. So I'd say, I haven't been disappointed at all. I've enjoyed seeing our front four get after the passer.
I have too. And with the back four that we have, if our front four get that pressure, it's going to be a long day for any quarterback. And hopefully in a couple weeks it'll be a long day for a quarterback from Purdue named Drew Brees. But we won't talk about that right now.
It's the end of the third quarter, bitches.
That is the end of the third quarter. And we'll take a quick station identification, and we'll come back for our final quarter here on the Seahawk Positivity YouTube channel.
You're listening to the 12th Man Fan Jam on the Seahawk Positivity YouTube channel.
Well, I hear all that. What is an internet?
And now it's time for the fourth quarter of the 12th Man Fan Jam. Here to lead us through the final quarter is once again our host, the self-appointed Reverend Moses of the St. Paul Allen Church of Seahawk Positivity.
We are back for the fourth and final quarter of the 12th Man Fan Jam. Since we don't have a game to predict this week, we don't have any prognostications for a football game, I thought we would end the show in the fourth quarter by doing what we usually do in a 2-minute warning, which is play my favorite game, which is Which is Bigger? And that will be based on the Seahawks season stats. So I know Brehani's never played Which is Bigger ever before in her life. Have you, Brehani?
Never. I'm an innocent, pure girl.
All right.
I don't know nothing about this.
All right. We're going to
She's
start.
also an excellent liar.
Yeah, we're going to start with her because the first topic is, Brehani, which is bigger? Which is going to be bigger in the term of sacks?
Okay.
So which is the bigger sacks?
Sacks, okay. Big sacks. Okay.
I'm in fifth grade. Okay. Who's going to end the season with more sacks? Cliff Averill or Michael Bennett? They both have 6.5 right now. They're in a dead tie. Is Cliff Averill or Michael Bennett going to have more sacks by the end of the year?
Ah, my goodness. Well, they're both big guys. So,
Oh dear.
so I'm going to have to say, and I might have to say Bennett.
All
I
right.
think Bennett, yeah.
Going with Bennett. All right. Matt,
Yes.
would you like to tell me which is going to be the bigger number, Cliff Averill sacks or Michael Bennett sacks at the end of the year?
Well, I think Bennett still has a little bit to learn about how to sack somebody without getting a penalty. So I'm going to go with Averill.
Oh.
Oh.
Will, which is going to be bigger, Cliff Averill sack numbers or Michael Bennett sack numbers?
Well, I think Michael Bennett gives you a good pass rush up the middle, but I think Averill coming off the edge is going to finish slightly more sacks than Bennett by the end of the year.
Well said. Well said. Well, I've studied these two gentlemen very closely to figure out which is going to be bigger, and I will say that I'm going to go with Michael Bennett. I think Michael's going to have more sacks, just because I don't know, because I want to say that. Okay, round two.
Sounds good to
Brehani.
me.
Yes, round two, Brehani. Interceptions.
Okay.
Right now, Richard Sherman has 4. Earl Thomas has 4. Which Legion of Boom member will have more interceptions by the end of the season, Richard Sherman or Earl Thomas?
You know, Gosh, those are tough questions.
Aren't they?
I'm always thinking Earl, and the reason why, because he's like the silent guy, because they always talk about Richard, and he's so known, so they're going to be probably doubly trying to. So I'm thinking Earl. Earl's like the silent.
Did you guys see the 49er fan that worked the oxygen masks for the game? And he wrote on a forum, I think it was a Ram forum. He was on the Seahawks sideline for the first half and the Rams sideline for the second half, and he told some great stories. And he was very, very impartial. And he said both sides, they were great people. And Sherman was really talkative and friendly, and talked to him about his aftershave. But the reason I'm bringing it up is, he said, this is a guy that isn't a Seahawk fan. But he saw them come off the field together, and he was down there where players talk. And he said, make absolutely no mistake, the leader of this defense is Earl Thomas. It's not even close. He said, when Earl talks, people listen. He said, Sherman, yes, he's a good player and he's a nice guy. But he said, Earl Thomas is an unquestionable leader of this defense. I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
That was a great article.
It was a great article. That guy was really, really generous to share that with everybody. Matt, who will have more interceptions at the end of the year, Richard Sherman or Earl Thomas?
Well, I know what Brehani means. You've got to watch the quiet guy. It's the quiet ones you've got to watch. But it's the mouthy ones that I think have more hunger for the interception, because the gobby one has to sort of prove that what he's saying. And back it up in actions. So I think actually 25. I think Sherman will have more interceptions.
Oh, you're going with the gobby one, are you?
I'm going. Yes, I am.
Gobby. Is that even a word? Are you just making up words now?
Gobby? No, gobby's a word.
Okay. Okay, we'll give it to you.
I'm English. I'm allowed to make. I'm English. I'm allowed to make up bloody words.
Yeah, we've butchered your English language enough as
it
is.
You have.
Oh, I know we have. Will you tell people what you think of our money, real quick?
The thing is that you go back to this. The first time I came over, all I was faced with were notes to start with, and more paper than I knew what to do with. I had paper notes, all the same bloody colour, all the same bloody size, all with white men who used to have slaves. That was what I had, and I was like, I don't get it. Where's the women? I mean, you've got powerful women in your country. Why is there not a woman on a banknote?
We put them on dollar coins and then forget them. That's what we do.
I didn't even get. I was there for 2 weeks last year. I didn't even get my first coin until the second week.
He loves our money.
Crazy ass country.
He does. Will, who will have more interceptions, Richard Sherman or Earl Thomas?
I'm going to say Thomas, because I think teams are going to throw away from Richard Sherman more as the season winds down. And when they do that, Earl Thomas is just going to show up out of nowhere and get some interceptions. So I think both will have probably about 6 or 7 by the end of the season at least. But I think Thomas will end up with 1 or 2 more.
And I think people will throw more at us because they'll be behind and they'll need to have to play catch up, and they'll get a little bit more desperate, get a little bit braver, and test them a little bit too much. And I think that's where we're going to see a lot of interceptions. I agree with the interception. I think there will be a lot of interceptions and fumbles still to be had by this team. I thought at the beginning of the year, my big prediction at the beginning of the year was that we were going to lead the NFL in takeaways, and we're pretty high up there, I know. I'm going to go with Earl as well. I think Earl is very quietly making a play for Defensive Player of the Year, even more than people are saying, MVP for Wilson. And if you go 14-2 and 15-1, I think it's fair for any quarterback to get at least a thought. But I think Earl Thomas is just having a spectacular season, and so I'm going to side with him on this and think that he's going to have just maybe one more than Richard Sherman come at the end of the year. Our last, which is bigger, is touchdown catches, and this is the only one that isn't even, but I went ahead and went with it because I think it's going to be 2 guys kind of competing for the same spot. Golden Tate has 4 touchdown catches, and Doug Baldwin has 3. So, my question to you, Brehani, who's going to have more touchdown catches at the end of the year? Showtime or DB Fresh? Who you got?
Gosh. There you go again, throwing the questions to me, huh?
Yeah.
I'm going to say, that 3, 4, Golden. Is this, wait a minute now, Golden, this is for touchdown pass catches,
Catches.
not for kickoff catches,
That's
not
right.
kickoffs or any of that.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
Sir, excuse me.
Yes,
Did we
sir.
not get that
Who are
taken
you?
care of at the beginning of the conversation? Who I am?
Oh, I
Well,
know. I know you're all woman. I know that. I've seen you shop. That's why I know that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Mad woman. You know what? I'm almost thinking I'm going to go with Baldwin because I think he, again, is the silent one because they're going to be doubling all the time, Golden, but Baldwin kind of makes those just like, oh my gosh, that was a sexy touchdown catch. So he's not as expected as much. I mean, he'd expect, we all expect him, but he's kind of like the who's that? He makes those sexy plays. So I'm going with Baldwin. With a sexy note. That's right.
I don't think any of the guys on the posse now are going to pick Baldwin because what you just said. I don't think anybody's. I want to pick the sexy guy. I don't think
I'm considering it.
Matt's thinking.
I know Matt would too.
Matt will think about.
Yeah, I look, but I'm not. Yeah, I've got my own feelings on that. But it's not. I still think Golden Tate is gonna get more touchdown passes.
Oh, okay. Even though you want to side with the sexy remarks, apparently.
I think Golden Tate's got his own certain appeal, but the main thing for me is that Golden Tate is the one who seems to want to make himself available. For me, Baldwin is the third down man. He's the one that you throw to on third down and just makes them catches, but they don't often happen in the end zone. It's for me, it's normally Golden. It's in the end zone. But to be honest, who knows? Percy Harvin could outdo both of those in a few weeks. So
True.
No, but I'll go with Golden. I think he's an amazing player.
All right.
As long as he doesn't taunt, no taunting.
Yeah.
No taunting. Yes. Will.
He got a spanking for that, so I think
he did.
Right too.
Well, how do you know he got a spanking? I'm not going to go into that.
She gave the spanking.
Apparently.
Hello.
Will, who do you think will have more touchdown catches, Golden Tate or Doug Baldwin?
Well, either no taunting or don't get caught taunting. One of the two.
Much better.
But Brehani, I love you, but I got to go with Golden Tate also. I think Baldwin is a great player, but I think Tate is just a bit more explosive, and I think he's more likely to take a short pass and take it to the house. So I think Tate's going to turn more plays into touchdowns than Baldwin will this year. But I think defenses will start rolling to Tate, and I think Baldwin's going to get his fair share too.
Yeah. Well, I was kidding around how none of us would touch Doug Baldwin after she made the comment about his sexy touchdown passes, but guess what? I'm doing the same thing. I'm going with Golden Tate. For the same reasons that you all mentioned. I think he's a little bit more explosive. Listen, Doug Baldwin's going to get more than 3. He's not done by any means, and he's fantastic. We are so lucky with who we have at receiver right now. And these two guys, I wouldn't trade either one of them for each other or anything in the world. But I just think that Tate is just a little bit more explosive. He might have that 10-yard screen that turns into a 40-yard touchdown, where Baldwin's going to be the one making the spectacular catch in the end zone. But really, 6 one, half dozen the other. But I'm going to go with Golden Tate as well.
Holy shit, it's a 2-minute warning.
Okay, we are at the 2-minute warning. This week at the 2-minute warning, I'm going to say just a little short rant, and then I'm going to turn it over to our posse for final words because we don't have a game to talk about coming up. We want to save all our Saints fun for next Friday evening when we record this show. So next weekend, we will definitely have a Saints program that's going to be almost all Saints all the time. Special interview next week you're not going to want to miss again. It's not going to be Mark. Mark is actually probably going to be healed by next week, but it's going to be something you're not going to want to miss. It's going to be a great show next week. It's going to be all Saints. But I have a deep thought.
And now, Deep Thoughts by
Moses. Here's my deep thought. For all the Seahawk fans, and I don't care if you're a fan since the Russell era, or you're a fan since the Zorn era, or you're a fan for whatever era you are a fan of. I want to throw a date at all of you right now, and that date is this: November 6, 2011. Over 2 years ago was the last time this football team lost a game by more than 7 points or didn't win it. I want to say that again. It's been over 2 years since the Seattle Seahawks have lost a game by more than 7 points. It was a 10-point loss to the Cowboys. Since then, every single game they've played, they've either lost by 7 points or less, or they've won. They are 22-7, including the playoffs, in their last 29 games, last 2 seasons, season and a half. We have been on these power rankings that nobody cares about. We've been top 5 all year. We were lucky to break the top 10 for many years. We were lucky to even be noticed by the media. People are talking about this team all over the country. And so what I'm asking every 12th man to do this Sunday is simply stop for a minute. And yes, we hope they go to the Super Bowl. And yes, we hope this continues and we have a great season. But no matter what happens, at this point right now today, take a moment and just kind of reflect on how lucky we are and how amazing this team is right now. I don't know where it's going to go. We might go 10-6. We might go 15-1. But just right now, I think it's a great idea for every Seahawk fan to kind of revel in this, especially those of us who, and everybody on the posse and myself can attest to this. Anyone who's been through the 8-8s, the 6-10s, the 2-14s, and anywhere in between, this is an absolutely dominating football team that we have right now. And we're so lucky to be part of this era, even if, God forbid, 10-1 is as good as it gets, which I think we're all know it's going to be a lot better than this. But it's a magical time to be a Seahawk fan right now, and for many years it wasn't. So take this bye week and just kind of take a step back and look and kind of appreciate what we got right now. So that's my little rant.
Here.
Yeah, that's my little rant.
Here.
Just
to add to that, I think that every Seahawks fan should always remember every so often, especially when you're 10-1 as we are, just rewatch some of the Mora years, just to remind ourselves of how crap it can be.
Ah!
Do we have to?
No.
Yes, you have to.
No, we definitely don't.
That's my magic sponge for this week, I'm afraid, guys.
But don't because it if it disappears, don't lose this moment right now.
No, don't lose the moment, but use it for grounding, to ground ourselves, to remind ourselves the legacy of bad refereeing calls, the legacy of the Maury years. Let's look at some of those things, or watch the Super Bowl game again.
Oh my God, you're a masochist. You're a masochist. Brehani, it was great to have you on tonight. Any final thoughts before we call it an evening?
No, gentlemen, thank you so much for having me on. It's been a wonderful evening. You guys have been fabulous.
Oh, thank you. You've been for yourself. You are truly a Blinghawk in every sense of the word, and a wonderful fan. Thank you for joining us. Will, Shadowhawk, anything you have to finish with?
Well, just playing off what you said about it being more than 2 years since we've lost a game by more than 7 points. Remember, in Pete Carroll's first year, every game we lost was by at least 15 points.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
So, yes, we've come a very long way and not a lot of time. So enjoy the ride.
Absolutely. Matthew?
Mm-hmm.
Anything you want to add before we...
Just enjoy the bye week. It's one of those weeks where we can just sit back and watch other teams, and I hope that our boys are still focused, taking momentum forward, and let's talk about the Saints next week. Who dat?
Oh, absolutely. We're going to have a fun show next week. Wow, this was a lot of fun. I hope you were able to waste some of your bye week with us, this show, listening to this show. I hope you got to waste some of that time the bye week to get closer to that Saints game. We all want to get to that Saints game. Next week's show is going to be spectacular. Thank you so much for taking the time to making us part of your bye week Seahawk experience, so to speak. We hope we've helped you waste some time. We hope you've laughed a little. We hope you smiled a lot, and we hope you continue to listen. Once again, our email is up on the board, so if you want to contact us and let us know how we're doing, give us some constructive criticism. We're going to have a great show talking about the Saints game coming up next week. It'll be a fantastic show. Be looking for that probably on Saturday. For the posse, for my partner in crime, Matt, this is your self-appointed Reverend Moses of the St. Paul Island Church of Seahawk Positivity saying have a great bye week. Rest up, rest your voices, and get ready for the Saints next week. And go Hawks.